Okay, everybody, Shabbat Shalom. In addition to it being Shabbat, today, while it's still light out, is a minor Jewish holiday called Lag BaOmer. The Omer refers to the period of days between Pesach, Passover, and Shavuot. Shavuot is the next holiday that's big major Jewish holiday that's coming up in the middle of May. Now, why is this day called Lag BaOmer? Because Lag is the two Hebrew letters Lamed and Gimel, which Hebrew letters are also Hebrew numbers. So Lamed is the Hebrew number 30, and Gimel, of course, is the Hebrew letter for 3. So 30 plus 3 is 33. That means in the days of our counting from Passover leading up to Shavuot, today, right now, is the 33rd day of the Omer. Hence, it's called Lag BaOmer. And we're going to say a blessing to count this day, to sanctify this day in just a moment, right after we say Kiddush. But the question is, why the 33rd day of the Omer? What makes it so special that it should be considered a holiday? Well, according to the Talmud, about 12,000 students of the great Rabbi Akiva died in the midst of these days between Passover and Shavuot from a terrible plague. The Talmud says that the plague struck the students of Rabbi Akiva because they did not respect one another. But, according to the Talmud, on the 33rd day of the Omer, there was a respite. There was a break in the plague. That's a nice legend. Historically speaking, it's possible that what happened was that Rabbi Akiva was also one of the Jewish leaders at the time who resisted Roman rule. The Romans were in power in Judea, and that was close to 2,000 years ago. And maybe there's some historical evidence to suggest that the students of Rabbi Akiva joined a rebellion against the Romans, and possibly on the 33rd day of the Omer, they had a small military victory, and hence there was reason to celebrate. The history is a little murky, but we have a nice legend and perhaps the historical, questionable, but maybe the historical record. Now, another famous rabbi who defied the Romans at that time was named Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There are Jewish mystical texts that include legends about this rabbi, Shimon Bar Yochai, and he's become kind of a cult hero, even still today, amongst many ultra-Orthodox Jews. And in fact, it is their custom to hold a major days-long festival in the town of Meron in Israel, northern Israel, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried. Now, last night in Meron, in northern Israel, which is near the mystical city of Sfat, some 100,000 ultra-Orthodox Jews gathered to celebrate. The festivities turned to a nightmare, to horror, about an hour after midnight, when scores of adults and children were crushed and suffocated in an overcrowded, narrow passageway. This was a terrible, terrible tragedy. For years, there were government reports about the site's poor infrastructure and that they needed to be repaired in order to support such large gatherings. Apparently, these reports went unheeded, and hence now we have 45 Israelis who are dead. Not only is this an awful tragedy, but it was jarring to see some 100,000 Israelis crowded together, standing right next to each other and celebrating in the face of a pandemic. In the pictures that I saw, I didn't see any masks. Now, officials in Israel warned against large gatherings in order to prevent the spread of COVID. Again, from evidence that I saw, it seems that that advice also went, by and large, unheeded. Tonight, we'll have a moment of silence to think about the people who lost their lives in what I would say is a needless tragedy. And I hope that all of us, and certainly the Orthodox leadership will use this catastrophe to reflect that careful planning and adherence to health guidelines must accompany a celebration in order for it to be truly joyous and to avoid tragedy. The prophets of old, of the Bible, came and warned us about mistakes that we were making. The same thing happened here. The site wasn't able to support a gathering of 100,000 people. They didn't listen. We need to take heed and to take care of ourselves in order to prevent the needless loss of life. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. We pray for the survivors. We pray for the families of those who are lost. I'll ask that we just have a moment of silence right now before we continue with our service tonight. Everyone, thank you. Again, Shabbat Shalom.